So thank you all for coming on to listen to this brief talk on plantain food products in southern Nigeria, the insights from quality, preferences, and implications for breeding. I am presenting this work on behalf of the great team that is listed here on this slide and led by Bella Tiken. Basically, as Eglantine has just said, the focus of the next few minutes talk will be on highlights of this paper published at the IJFST special issue and available open access. I know I will not be able to cover everything in very few minutes, so you are most welcome to consult the entire paper for more details. As you all know, plantain is a very important staple, particularly for smallholders in West and Central Africa, where it contributes to food and income security. According to recent data from CIRAD compiled by Lescott and team, Nigeria is currently the world's top plantain producer. So the starchy fruits of this banana type called plantain is mainly consumed when processed in various forms, also at different maturity stages. However, the information on the main plantain products is quite limited. So in this study, we set out to conduct a survey to identify the main plantain food products and quality characteristics of the fresh fruit and food products from the perspective of farmers in southern Nigeria. At the same time, we paid attention to gender and interstate differences. And our hope is that the findings will inform breeding programs to prioritize objectives and define traits for selection to meet cultivar needs and thereby foster hybrid adoption. So with regards to the survey methodology, we conducted this survey in from July to August 2019 in 3 states in southern Nigeria: Osun, found in the southwest, Delta and Rivers in the south-south, and these are in the plantain belt of Nigeria. So these are states which are known for high plantain production and consumption. And for each state, we did sampling we selected 4 communities as shown on this slide. And in terms of the methodology we used, or the survey tools, we used key informant interviews, 1 per community, and specifically these were community leaders. And then we did 24 focus group discussions, which were sex disaggregated, 2 for each community. And then we also did individual interviews. So here is just a snapshot of the socio-demographic profile of the respondents. And what I would just like to highlight here is that from this information, we can confirm that our study population met the criteria for the survey. So we have 99% of the focus group participants who are producers, and 78% who are also processors. Then for the key informant interviews, we have 92% of women who are plantain growers and up to 100% men, which emphasize that plantain production is vital in this region. So we also had 95% women who process plantain, as opposed to 84% of men. And I want to emphasize here that processing means processing plantain for home consumption. Other parameters are as listed on the slides, and the details are found in the paper. So we found out that the main plantain food products which are important in the study area are dodo, fried plantain, boli, roasted plantain. I mean, these are local names that these of these foods in Nigeria. And then boiled plantain with beans. These beans could either be vigna, which is cowpea in Nigeria. Sometimes they refer to vigna as beans here. And it could also be fasciolus, based on the inquiries from the participant. And then also porridge. Other products which ranked high were chips and flour. So most of these foods which were found out, the processing methods, a combination of one or more of these which are listed, like frying, roasting, boiling or steaming, sometimes in combination with other ingredients, pounding, drying, and then there were also slight differences in these processing methods based on the individual preferences of the respondents. For example, some people would boil plantain with the peel, and some people would boil plantain without the peel. Now, this table lists the importance of these food products so that we can appreciate the relative importance. So they are ranked according to a percentage of the frequencies in which they were mentioned first in total and then for each state. So you see the products are listed in the previous slide, ranking high, dodo, boiled, and then plantain with beans, porridge, chips. And then it was also interesting to note that here in Nigeria, a significant proportion of the respondents eat plantain raw. So the numbers are listed here on the slide. And this slide also shows that there were significant differences in the preferences of these food products across the different states. For example, you see things like porridge is more important in the South, in Delta and River states, where they ranked the food as the most important product. I should also add here that while we recorded the frequencies of mention, we also did a sort of qualitative ranking with a subset of the population with individuals who could comfortably indicate which product they preferred over the others. That's why you have qualitative ranking on this side, and then you have frequencies on this side. We found out that there were no significant differences between men and women with regard to the importance of these food products across the states and also within each state. Now, we also inquired about varietal preferences for food products. And here, we found out that the respondents mentioned up to 55 unique names for the varieties. And out of these, only 5 were common in 2 states, Rivers, in Rivers State. So amongst these plantain varieties, the false horn types were the most preferred based on the rankings of, say, the top 3 varieties for each community. And the preferences were more linked to the bunch or the fruit morphology and not quite to the use for specific products. Most key informants and focus group respondents actually stated that all plantain varieties can be used for all products. And in this case, they refer to local varieties. And this is kind of suggesting a very limited diversity for quality attributes among these local varieties. Now on this slide, you see the big fruits of the false horn type of plantain, which the respondents said is preferred, or they call it a good one, and then small fruits of the false horn type, which the respondent said was not preferred. In this study, only few hybrids were actually mentioned, and these were often referred as improved variety, hybrid, or agri variety. They were liked because they had big bunches, big fingers, they look attractive. But in terms of processing, they were not preferred because They were more like dessert bananas. They were sweet. Some said they spoil easily, soften when cooked. They have big stones inside, surely referring to seeds, especially if they were tetraploids. And then they were not as tasty as local varieties. Hence, their use now was mostly limited to making things like flour, chips, porridge, and barley. This was very important information for us because although these hybrids were few, they have pointed us to some very important characteristics that consumers don't prefer. And for this reason, breeders need to look out for these characteristics. Now, when studying inquiring about the quality characteristics for fresh plantains, we noted that most of the characteristics that the respondents listed out or gave were based on the unripe fruit or green fruit at maturity. So as you see on this table, they were also ranked according to frequency of mention. The most preferred characteristics for both men and women together was the fruit or finger size. This is somewhat related to bunch size or number of fingers, which are all yield-related traits. And these ones are currently already being taken account in most breeding programs. But then you also find a whole lot of traits like peel color, tip color, maturity, peel appearance, finger firmness, fruit angularity, which kind of link to the stage of maturity. Other than that, you have other traits like pulp color and good taste. Now, when looking at differences in preferences between the different states, so it was evident that color-related characteristics were more important in rivers when compared to the other states, while the maturity was more important in Delta. Now, in terms of the gender dimension of the quality characteristics of fresh fruit, there was the most apparent difference between men and women for their preference was the bunch size, where men mentioned bunch size more often than women did. And this is possibly linked to the fact that men are more involved with sales of the fruits, and bunch size is a very critical trait for selling the plantain. Besides that, for all the other traits, there were really no significant differences between the preferences for men and women across the states, but there were few other differences for the pulp color and finger size in rivers and delta, respectively, as shown. We went on to look at quality characteristics for food products. Sorry. So for the main food products that are listed according to that were listed top according to the rankings, we found similar characteristics being mentioned across different products. And out of these, things like color, softness, taste, smoothness, firmness, stickiness, or gumminess, and crunchiness stand, and as well as the odor stand out. Now you note that of these, besides color and taste, which are kind of unique in their own context, the other traits, softness, smoothness, firmness, stickiness, gumminess, are all texture-related traits, which underscores the importance of texture in plantain when it comes to processing to various products. One thing I should add here is that this processing occurs at different ripening stages for most of these products, depending on the preference of the consumer. But you have an exception for these would be amala or flour, actually, which is made out of green fruits. or dodo, which is predominantly made out of ripe or overripe fruits. So we try to look at the known preferred characteristics of fresh fruits and food products to see how we can identify some negative characteristics that can be useful for breeding programs. Again, you will see things like immature featuring very high, underscoring the importance of maturity for preference of use, or let's say maturity stage for preference of use for plantain fresh fruit. And then light green peel is also related to maturity. Small fingers as well could be related to maturity, but also could be typical of other of different genotypes. Small bunch as well. White pulp underscores the importance of pulp color. Then looking at the food products, you have things like softness, which relates to texture, gummy, sticky, still relating to texture, immature, still relating to maturity, white color, pointing out to color, and bad taste. These all relate to the traits we have seen in the previous slides, which were listed as important characteristics. I would like to highlight here that most of the characteristics that are listed here as negative characteristics are also kind of related to the cooking methods. So importantly, the stage of maturity and the way the food is processed affects the final products. Now, putting all of these together, we try to get some pointers for what was preferred and what was not preferred for, and relate this to each particular fruit characteristic as mentioned by the respondents. So when it comes to fruit size, respondents preferred fruits with big fingers. And as mentioned earlier, most of the preference point to false horn plantains, and false horn plantains are those which normally have bigger fingers compared to like the French plantains, which have smaller fingers. Then you have peel color, where there is preference for dark green peel at maturity and yellow when ripe. They do not prefer light green peels, and they do not prefer small fingers. Pulp color, yellow pulp was preferred as opposed to white pulp. Bunch size, a big bunch was preferred as opposed to small bunch. And then in terms of number of fingers, the respondents prefer many fingers, and they even pointed out that the fingers could be as many as 20 to 60 in a bunch. Tip color, that is actually a maturity trait. So when plantain is black, when plantain is mature, the tips are black at maturity. So that's what they're looking to see, and not green tips for an immature bunch. Then texture, finger firmness, strong fruits at maturity. They don't prefer soft fruits, and we can link this to the non-preferred traits that were mentioned when talking about hybrids. They mentioned that they were more like, they said they were more like banana than plantain. Then food angularity, it was all about the edges of the fruit. When immature, the edges are quite apparent in the plantain fruits, but then when they are mature, they have minimal sharp edges. So people prefer those, when they're looking to get plantain, they look for those without edges or where the edges are not quite pronounced. Then for taste, they mentioned good taste and bad taste. So in all, there is need to identify or relate all these characteristics to measurable traits so that they can be used for evaluation and selection of new hybrids. Now for things like fruit size, pulp color, bunch size, number of fingers, these are already existing as traits in most breeding programs. But for things like color, texture, more work still needs to be done to get this into breeding schemes. And in hybrids, therefore, need to be evaluated for processing quality at various ripening stages, because plantain is preferred for products at different ripening stages, as we have mentioned earlier. So to summarize everything, we identified the most common plantain food products in southern Nigeria, and new hybrids should be evaluated for suitability in making these products and in consultation with food scientists. So we also found differences in the preferences for food products between states, and these differences could be useful in identifying specific market classes for products when it comes to plantain breeding. Fruit pulp texture, and this would relate to firmness or softness. Color and taste were identified as the most critical fresh fruit characteristics with impact to processed product, and these need to be included in selection schemes. We also found interstate and gender differences in the preference for quality characteristics, suggesting very little impact on gender inequality due to the choice of quality traits that are used for plantain improvement. One other important thing about this study is that there was really a lack of specificity in the use of varieties for particular food products. And this therefore indicates that there is really a limited diversity among the local plantain varieties for quality characteristics like the color, texture, and taste that I mentioned, which is why respondents will say all plantains can be used for all food products. So although very few bred varieties or hybrids were mentioned in this study, they did provide very important non-preferred traits that breeders need to look out for. And so with this, I come to the end of the brief highlights, and I would like to thank the data collection team who went out in the field, led by Esme Stewart, to conduct these surveys. I would like to appreciate all survey respondents for their cooperation in providing all the information that we have summarized. And I would like to thank Claire for constructively reviewing our paper, and the entire RTB Foods project team for making all this work possible. I also acknowledge IITA, the CG, IAR Root Tuber and Banana Program, and all our donors who continue to support plantain research, particularly for Africa. With this, I say thank you all for your time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Delphine. So you have shown very clearly that these surveys actually evidencing some yield and maturity related traits, which are already known and taken into account into breeding pipelines, but also a lot of both positive and negative traits, which are color related and mainly texture related traits that still remain to be considered if we want to ensure plantain hybrids adoption. So this means that we need now to investigate how to measure these traits and how to predict them. And it has been done by some teams in RTB Foods Framework. Dominique, you have a question for Delphine. Do you want me to read it or do you want to ask directly to Delphine?
Yes, nice presentation, Delphine. And as you know, Jean Go in Cameroon and Antonin Kouassi in Côte d'Ivoire have published also a paper in the International Journal of Food Science and Technology. The first one in Cameroon show that the hybrid are less preferred, clearly less preferred than the land race. And the second one from Antonin is about a test of texture evaluation. And he demonstrated that a very high correlation between panelists and textural measurement. Then my question is now, are you ready to screen the IITA collection? Can we plan some work on the different genotype that you have in your collection?
Okay. Thank you, Dominique. Yeah, I think the purpose for this study is for us to see how to get things better. It's for us to be able to produce hybrids that will be used by farmers. So certainly, what the information that has come out of this study, as well as the study in Cameroon and in Cote d'Ivoire, are very, very useful for the breeding program. So yes, we are ready to screen the diversity we have for this new, for texture and color and everything. And in fact, we are actually already collaborating with the team of Alamu in the nutrition lab, how to be able to translate these into measurable traits and then screen the diversity that we have.
Very good, thank you.
I have a question.
There is a Claire's question first, Didier.
Okay.
Okay, then I will come back to you. So there's a question from Claire. Has bottom line conclusion, do you think plantain breeders need to take gender into account in developing product profiles?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you, Claire. Yeah, I think this study was done with a small subset, I would say, of plantain end users. One of the things we highlighted in the paper is that this study was focused on the farming communities, but a very large set of banana consumers are in the urban communities, and they are not included in this study. So I wouldn't really conclude that gender should not be taken into account until we have a more comprehensive study, and we actually plan one now for Nigeria that will cover both the urban and the rural communities, and hopefully we should be able to link up with other plantain consuming countries in West Africa so that we can have a better feel of the impact on gender. Thank you.
Thanks, Delphine. Very nice presentation.
Didier, you have the floor for your question to Delphine.
Okay, thank you, Eglantine. Thank you very much, Delphine, for your nice presentation. I have two questions. The first one, you mentioned 7 times maturity stage of fresh material. Could you please remind us the stage of the maturity stage of each material, which I suppose is different according to the product?
Okay, let me try to understand your question. You mean I should go to each product and try to link it to a maturity stage?
Yeah, of the fresh material, please.
Okay. Yep. I would attempt to do that, but this is quite based on the, sorry, let me go to the slide where products are mentioned. Okay. We are here, right?
Yes.
So for dodo, for example, from what we gathered, dodo is mostly made with plantains which are ripe, that is at the yellow stage or overripe, stretching up maybe to the if we use the nine scale maturity stage, like as detailed in the paper, you could somewhere around maybe stage 4 right up to stage 9, depending on the preference of the consumer. Now, it's roasted plantain. So plantain can be roasted right from the green stage to the ripe to the overripe, depending on the preference of the consumer. Boiled is the same. Plantain with beans is in the green stage to the stage which is beginning to get ripe. Porridge is mostly plantain in the green stage. Chips, plantain in the green stage or that which is beginning to get ripe, because if it gets ripened too much, it gets soft and it's difficult to slice the way they want to slice chips. Of course, raw plantain would be when it is ripe because people just eat it in the fields like banana. Flour is made with green plantain, which is not ripe because they don't want it to be sweet. It's mostly used to make amala, which is a paste-like product. Pepper soup is made with ripe and green, depending on the preferences of the user. Pounded, mostly green plantain. A few, especially in the South, use plantain that is beginning to get ripe, which will be now related to such a product in Côte d'Ivoire. Then you have pounded mixed with yam, cocoyam, and gari. For these ones, they use purely unripe plantain. Then pudding, they use both ripe and unripe. Amala, I've mentioned it, is linked to flour, which is green plantain. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, okay. And I wonder, how can you take into account the color as one of the main characteristics, as color change according to the maturity stage?
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that question. So if you notice, one of the things we are recommending is that when we are doing evaluation, we should do evaluation across ripening stages. So when defining these protocols, we could be able to establish a color for a green plantain and a color for a ripe plantain. Some standards can be set based on these preferences. It's not a one size fits all.
Okay. Okay, so I have the last question. Did you find a common characteristic between consumer preference in Cameroon, based on the study of Gérard, and that of Côte d'Ivoire, based on the study of Antonin? The common or the difference characteristic?
Okay, thank you for that. I haven't really tried to clearly dissect what the characteristics that were found out there, but I think it would be interesting to compare them and find what is common, because most of these products are the same. We talked about boiled plantain, and Gerard has also done an in-depth study of boiled plantain. So it would be interesting if the studies had come out before this one. That would have been a subject of discussion in the study. But I agree that it's something that we need to look into.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
I see a question from Gérard in the chat box, but it's a broad one. Did varieties play any role in the preferences?
Okay, thank you, Gerard. That was, I would say, the most difficult part of the study, because when it comes to variety, as I mentioned, there were 55 variety names, and these 55 variety names were all unique across locations. Amongst those, there were only 5 names which were common in Delta and Rivers. In some other states, the individuals or the respondents could not even identify variety. This means identifying variety itself is a whole big issue that we need to figure out how to address. Now, when it comes to pointing varieties to specific products, it was very, very difficult. What we got out of this is that the main preferred variety is agwagwa. They call it main plantain in the South, and in Osun, they call it agwagwa, which is a false horn plantain, right? And then other than that, the only difference that was made was that a hybrid was more like banana, and it was linked to they use for making flour or for making barley, and not much for making things like dodo because it was soft. Yeah. Usually they would only link the size of the fruit to the product. Does that answer your question, Gerard?
It's not Gerard, it's Richard O'Fay.
Oh, Rita.
Your colleague. Yes, unfortunately, Gerard is not available today.
Okay, yeah. That was really a difficult aspect of the study. When in the beginning we were hoping to get that, but we were not lucky for the Nigeria context.
So a lot of people congratulating you, and there is Jim. Jim, do you have any question, or would you like to ask for clarification to Delphine?
No, thank you, Eglantine. Delphine, it was a very clear presentation, and yeah, I appreciate it and enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
There is a question from Priscilla. Are the food products associated with specific varieties?
Okay.
Yeah, I think she answered it. Thanks, Eglantine. She answered it when she was discussing Richard's question. Thank you. Yeah.
Any other question or clarification, or I don't know, elements for Delphine? Dominique, do you want to say a word?
No, I hope that this study will go directly to the germplasm in the germplasm study in Cameroon, in Nigeria, and Ivory Coast. I know that we are planning in Cameroon and Côte d'Ivoire in period 4 to have some Work Package 5 activity on preference on some clones. And this was my question to Delphine. Are you preparing something with farmers to do some evaluation and also at the same time laboratory screening? But I hope we will have some result on the different genotypes in Cameroon, Côte d'Ivoire, and Nigeria.
Yeah. Thank you, Dominique. Yeah, as you know, our work on this project and for Work Package 1 was very much limited to this activity 3. But we are very, very open to collaborate with other work packages to take this work further so that we should get to the end point. And our end point is when we are able to have measurable traits for each of these characteristics that we have listed here. So personally, I'm open to collaborate with anyone who is willing to take this further. So would be interested to join into whatever the team in Côte d'Ivoire or Cameroon is doing. And yes, we have a lot of diversity here, which we use for breeding. And I've mentioned earlier that we are collaborating with Alamo and team to evaluate that diversity for these quality traits. So yeah, any other efforts would be welcome.
Yes, very good. I think the plantain product profile need to work together in the free country and to adjust sensory panel and texture measurement. I think the technique now, the protocol is working very well. We have very discriminant measurement in Côte d'Ivoire, and Gerard just bought a texturometer. They are implementing the technique in Cameroon. I know you have a texturometer, and now we need to join the team of biophysical evaluation, and I think we will have good results in the next period.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Very, very clear presentation.
Thank you. There's a final last question from Sunkura from Benin, IITA Benin. I would like to know what are the reasons for rivers people do not like or do not prefer pounded with yam, cocoa yam, gari, pounded plantain with cocoa yam, yam and gari. Why don't you think?
Yeah, thank you. I think this would be more linked to their ethnic preferences. But what we saw is just what obtains. Maybe that's what they grew up eating and they are used to it in their community. The respondents just mentioned that that's the way they like the plantain pounded in that side of Nigeria without adding the yam and other products, while in the other side they added the other products. I think we can only attribute this to their ethnic differences. That's all I can think of for now.